What did your roommate from hell do to earn their title? Roommate was a total slob, and I am not saying this lightly. He would eat dinner on the couch, then put his dirty plate, with scraps and bones, under the couch. I would have to check constantly for that or else we would get some foul smells. One time he had pancakes and put the plate under the chair, and due to the large amount of leftover maple syrup we got ants. He would just trash everything and made the house disgusting. Finally I had enough and I stopped cleaning up after him. I just let the house fall into total ruin. He then started staying at his parents' house, telling them and our friends that I was a slob and he couldn't handle it anymore. He eventually moved out and lives with his girlfriend now. She complains constantly that he is a slob. Burned holes through the bottom of my pots making instant ramen in maple syrup instead of water. She forgot it on the stove while playing bongos in the living room at 2 a.m. with some dude she'd brought home off the street. She had the landlord return the security deposit in her name, even though I'd paid it in full. It was $1,800. When I asked the landlord for the deposit back, he said he already gave it to her and I had to work it out with her. I was 19 and didn't know any better. Needless to say, she never paid me back. Still bitter 20 years later. I worked full-time in college and her parents paid her way. $1,800 was a lot of money back then. Woke up every day to blink 182 small things at 4 a.m. for swim practice. Except he'd keep hitting snooze so he'd hear it 2 to 5 times in a row. And he'd be late so his teammates would start banging on the door. I was a double science major working multiple jobs. I went to bed at 2, coming home from the library. So no sleep for me I guess. I would have to wake up at that time on weekends for my landscaping job and he would biatch and moan about it. The fare never left the room, even when I would bring a girl back, and would just sit there and watch Netflix on my TV. I can't smell, so it didn't bother me, but all my guests said it reeked in there since he never showered. Second semester I moved out and lived in the chem library. Instant improvement. Never had a roommate since. One of my first flatmates in London was weirdly into me. One time I took a friend home cause she was too drunk to take the tube by herself. My flatmate saw us getting home, asked me if she was my girlfriend and I said yes hoping he'd leave me alone after this. Big mistake. He asked if he could sleep with us in my bed. My friend was passed out at this point, said he wouldn't do anything, just wanted some human contact. Creepy as hell, moved out shortly after that. We already weren't getting along, but never escalated beyond minor spats. That is until he put nail polish remover into my facial moisturizer. He denied it when I confronted him of course. I was even accused by my other roommates of putting it there myself. Obviously I moved out like 2 weeks later, because the landlord refused to let me put a lock on my bedroom door. My new place was furnished, and I moved out ASAP, so it took me a couple extra days after I moved to get all my furniture out, including my bed. When I arrived to get my bed, there were fresh bodily fluids on my sheets and pillowcase. That's right, the dude jacked off onto my pillow. She stole my underwear, wore them, then reported me to our boarding school for having personal inappropriate underwear when I confronted her for stealing them. She got in trouble for theft, but I still got in trouble for having clothes outside the dress code even though I threw them out after I saw them in her dirty laundry hamper. Before my husband and I were married and had kids, we had a roommate from hell. He was an alcoholic and would do weird-ass poop like eat a whole package of hot dog buns and throw the wrapping back in the pantry. The one time he did dishes he got extremely mad and pissed the rest of the day. He tried to come between my husband and I as a couple many times. He proudly claimed that once my husband had passed out drunk and that he, said roommate, had sex with him. It's not true but he said it for years anyway, despite that actively being rape. He tortured our cat and then wondered why the cat didn't like him. He was a bad roommate but even more, a bad friend. A friend of mine had a good stereo and a tremendous record collection. His roommate never showered, never changed his sheets. Didn't go to class. Talked about his dream of going to Nepal and scoring weed. Spent his time playing ping pong in the student center. He flunked out, as a freshman. A taxi arrived, he took the stereo and the record collection, and left. The cops got him. Still, not a great roommate experience. Yelled at me for reading my own books because it messed up the decor. Books were sorted by color and not subject and reading them made them look not as new. I once had a roommate who kept cranking the temperature way up. I'm talking like 28 degrees Celsius or 85 Fahrenheit. The landlord kept coming over to turn it way down as he was paying the bill. This meant we had the landlord coming over basically every day for a month. Finally he turned the temperature to a very generous 22 Celsius, set up a lock box to cover the thermostat. My roommate came home, got wasted, took a hammer and smashed the box to pieces and turned the temperature up to 28 degrees again. This by itself was just mainly amusing, but he also was stealing my stuff, borrowing money without paying it back, and hosting late-night dance parties to Nelly Furtado music. He claimed he had never used a vacuum in his life and didn't know how. One time he put a frozen pizza in the oven together with the cardboard. I smelled burning and raced downstairs to remove smoldering paper from the oven before it caught fire and burnt our house down. I asked him what he was thinking and he said that's the way we do it in Spain. No shame, no apology. My college roommate ran out of pot, so he tried to boil down his bong water to hash in my microwave using my Tupperware. The residue ended up fusing with the plastic at the bottom of the container, so he scraped it out with a razor blade and smoked a big bowl of plastic and bong water concentrate with the windows closed. Started doing small amounts of methamphetamines regularly to treat their self-diagnosed ADHD. Did seem to help for a short time, but then quickly descended into large amounts of crystal meth almost all the time. Breaking point was when they presented a 30-plus bullet point itemized list to all roommates about the things they didn't like about us. Included things like 3 crumbs were left on counter after cooking and chair not pushed in perfectly at table after standing up. Then they began stockpiling guns in their room. Luckily lease was up for renewal and we all noped out off there quickly. Not super terrible, but we went to a party, he got drunk super quick and saw some people he didn't want to be around and walked home. About an hour later me and my other roommate headed home too. When we pulled into the driveway we saw lights on in the living room, which quickly went off. When we got inside we saw a massive person-sized hole in the hallway wall into the bathroom. Our roommate was pretending to sleep, and when we asked him what the F happened he said someone broke in, didn't try to steal anything but just busted a hole in our wall, from inside of the bathroom into the hall I should add, then slipped out the still locked back door. They didn't see him laying on the couch at all either apparently. Dude was a compulsive liar. My favorite lie was that he had his whole head tattooed to look like a skull, but it faded so no one can tell anymore. In my younger years I had a friend who was 80% cool and 20% crazy as poop. That 20% believed aliens try to contact him from their ship and that he was in a bloodline of ninjas. He was obsessed with ninjas. One night we were watching that Speed Racer movie and he got really upset at the scene where John Goodman beat up a bunch of ninjas. So upset that he left the room and then punched a hole through my bathroom door. He actually tried to pretend it was an accident, like we didn't all just watch him storm off before hearing a loud bang. Literally murdered a man at my house. I had to testify. We had a horrible centipede problem at one of the apartments I lived in that came about suddenly. They were in every single room, including the bathroom and my bedroom. I would wake up to find multiple right above my head or next to the light switch in the bathroom. My fear of centipedes was already one step away from being a full-blown phobia before this. Neither of my roommates cared even in the slightest bit because they were both disgusting human beings, so one day I told the one whose father was the landlord that I was calling an exterminator and billing her dad if she didn't take care of the issue by the end of the day. Within an hour I got a call from her saying that she found the centipede's food source, a buildup of maggots in, around, and under her cat's food dishes. She took just as bad a care of her cats as she did herself, and this was the result. He got drunk and threw my PS4 controller at my TV, which shattered the screen. Instead of admitting this, he staged a robbery in which robbers ransacked my place and stole all of my poop. Every piece of furniture was overturned, smashed, and broken. I found out it was him when I discovered he threw everything I owned of value into the dumpsters outside to make it look like they had been taken. The police were also apparently called on him by a neighbor who heard the commotion, and the police found him in his room crying his eyes out, belligerently drunk. I went and spoke to the police, after dumpster diving for my personal belongings. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but told his parents he needed some effing help. Never spoke to him again after quite a long friendship. I saw him with a Capri Sun and a pair of scissors with a glass. He proceeds to cut the top of the Capri Sun, going through the straw, and pours the Capri Sun juice into the glass. My college roommate would lay on our couch all day and night, shirtless, playing online poker and watching sports on the shared TV. He mooched everything. Stole my food, alcohol, weed, etc. He didn't work, he was just always there. I would hang out at the neighbor's house mostly because it was so annoying and obnoxious. He'd wander over late at night when we'd all be drunk and try to trade my food, alcohol, etc. for things at my friend's house right in front of me.